Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm sitting with Ann Barkelew in California at a Page Society conference.
Right.
And it is Sunday, September 16th, 2007. And Ann has agreed to chat with me a little bit about her experiences in public relations. So let's start early on in your life, in your career. After you graduated from Central Missouri State University in 1957, you began your career as an English teacher and a journalism teacher, and you were a school administrator in Missouri and also in California school systems. And in 1966, you earned a Master of Education degree from the University of Missouri. How did you land in corporate PR?
Well, I think to get my start in public relations, you have to go back a little before I graduated from college, because I really believe that I got my start selling cookies as a Girl Scout or calendars as a brownie. I think that all those experiences are experiences that teach you a lot about planning and involving other people and working as a member of a team. But after I graduated from college, I became a teacher because it was what I always wanted to do, and it mixed my love of journalism. I'd been a junior high school newspaper editor and a senior high school yearbook editor, and I went to workshops at the University of Missouri School of Journalism. So I didn't know exactly what it was I wanted to do in journalism, but I so admired a teacher I had that I decided I wanted to be a teacher too. So after doing that in Missouri for 3 or 4 years, I then had a chance to go west to California. California requires a 5th year for a permanent credential, and so I needed to go back to school. Now, during those 5 years of teaching, I had so many students wanting to take journalism that I had to divide them into 2 groups, and so I set up a news bureau, and I assigned beats, and we got on the radio, and we got on television. So in effect, I was doing public relations for the schools at the time. I was also sort of a militant teacher, and I used to go to school board meetings and say, why aren't we told all these things that are going on? So when I took a year off to get my master's degree, I audited a course in school public relations, and I was absolutely amazed to learn what you can do on purpose to help people understand more what's actually happening in the world around them. I had a wonderful professor at the University of Missouri, and as a result decided to do my master's thesis organizing a program of public relations for the Santa Barbara schools, which is where I was teaching. I was on leave from Santa Barbara, California. Well, I was going to go back and head the English department at a brand new high school, which is every English teacher's dream. And one morning, my superintendent in Santa Barbara called and said, we are going to assign you to the district office and let you put into practice what you've written in your thesis. So, I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And from that point in my life on, I never ever applied for a job. It was sort of like one public relations opportunity followed another. But in Santa Barbara, we dealt with the closing of schools that weren't earthquake safe. I learned to wheel and deal. Then I had a chance to go into Los Angeles to help them decide what kind of public information program they should have in their school, in the Los Angeles County schools, and designed a program for them, sort of out of the goodness of your heart kind of thing, and ended up being offered the job. So I went in and I took that job. And that was my first experience with PRSA. And I got accredited. I went through accreditation. And Betsy Plank signed my accreditation certificate. So think about that. I mean, that's in the 60s. And Betsy, there weren't very many women in the field. And here she was signing it. So that was a real highlight. While I was in Los Angeles County, we dealt with declining enrollment, court-ordered desegregation of schools, legislative mandated collective bargaining for teachers with vicious strikes, And I learned very quickly that it's a lot easier if you have done some things ahead of time to try to avoid these crises in the schools. So I was on a plane going back to talk to someone somewhere about collective bargaining in schools, and I sat next to a man from Munsingware. And he was really interested in the fact that schools had public relations people. And so as I told him about it, and I told him about closing schools, he said, you know, we have to close half of our plants, and we really don't want the unions to come in. Do you think you have some advice for us? And I said, you bet I do. And so I flew back later and met with the people at Munsingware and told them what I thought they ought to do. And they said, well, would you come back and help us do it? So for 6 months, I went back to work in Minnesota at Munsingware and ended up staying. I discovered I loved the seasons again. So I guess, and while I was at Munsingware, then they called from Dayton-Hudson one day and said, we have a job we'd like to talk to you about. So I'm really fortunate that I've had such incredible experiences. But the lesson in it all for me is that, and what I try to tell college students whenever I get a chance, is that public relations, if you're good at what you do, you can do it anywhere. It's the same basic thing. A school principal and a store manager and a plant manager are exactly the same. You know, the superintendent of schools is not a great deal unlike the CEO of a company. And you're dealing in the court of public opinion. In fact, sometimes I think public sector public relations is harder than private sector or corporate public relations.